Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to uncover something totally fascinating. We are looking into why the world's absolute most brilliant experts still make catastrophic mistakes, and how a surprisingly, mundane tool can literally save lives. It's a concept that completely flips our understanding of what it actually means to be a professional today.
Okay, so let's dive right into this incredible source material. We're talking about the Checklist Manifesto by Atul Gawande. Now, Dr. Gawande is a surgeon, and he decided to investigate the real life and death consequences of human fallibility. And what he discovered is this profound paradox right at the heart of modern expertise. Think about it. We spend years training, we have incredible technology right at our fingertips, and yet these avoidable, persistent failures still happen everywhere. We're talking medicine, finance, government, you name it. So we have to ask the big question, right? What actually happens when a job becomes just too complex for even the world's absolute smartest experts? To answer this, we need to look at what occurs when highly trained teams are pushed to their absolute limits in high-stakes environments. And spoiler alert, it turns out it's rarely a lack of skill that brings them down.
Section 1, the paradox of expertise. Let's examine this paradox through a pretty visceral, truly unforgettable story straight from a hospital trauma ward. Picture this. A man comes into a San Francisco trauma ward on Halloween night. He's got a neat 2-inch stab wound in his belly. Now, he's stable, he's breathing normally, even chatting with the team. The medical team is doing everything perfectly by the book. But then he stops talking. His heart rate absolutely skyrockets, his blood pressure just vanishes, and they have to rush him for an emergency crash into the operating room. And when they open him up, an ocean of blood bursts out. The assailant's knife had actually gone more than a foot deep. You see, the surgical team did almost everything perfectly, but they missed one crucial tiny detail. They forgot to ask what the weapon was. It turns out the other guy was dressed as a soldier for Halloween, and the weapon wasn't a pocket knife, it was a foot-long bayonet. This terrifying near miss brings us to the core mystery of our explainer today. How can a team with so much training, so much cutting-edge technology, and so much focus fail to anticipate the obvious? I mean, your mind just doesn't jump to a bayonet in the middle of San Francisco, right?
Section 2, Ignorance versus Ineptitude. To truly wrap our heads around this paradox, we need to look at a really powerful philosophical framework that actually divides human failure into two totally distinct categories.
So the first reason we fail is ignorance. This is a failure simply because science has given us only a partial understanding of the world. For most of human history, let's be honest, we failed to save people just because we lacked the scientific knowledge. Think about heart attacks back in the 1950s. We didn't really know about the dangers of high blood pressure or cholesterol. If you had a heart attack back then, doctors basically just gave you morphine, prescribed strict bed rest, and kind of just hoped for the best. We failed because we simply did not know enough.
But then we have the second kind of failure, and this is where it gets interesting. Ineptitude. This is failure because the knowledge absolutely exists, yet we fail to apply it correctly. Today we know exactly how to treat a heart attack. We have clot-busting drugs, cardiac catheters, open heart surgery, the whole shebang. But studies show that a really alarming number of patients still don't get the correct treatment on time. So the crucial point here is that our primary struggle today is no longer ignorance, but ineptitude. We simply know way too much to apply it all flawlessly every single time.
Section 3, the age of extreme complexity. Let's look at some data to see how this builds into what is frankly an overwhelming crisis.
Just take a look at the sheer scale of what modern medicine has actually become. The World Health Organization currently classifies more than 13,000 different diseases, syndromes, and injuries. Clinicians have over 6,000 drugs and 4,000 unique procedures at their disposal. The density of what a modern clinician has to master is just staggering. The volume of knowledge has completely and utterly exceeded individual human capability. The complexity is ramping up so incredibly fast that even advanced computer systems are struggling to keep up with all the new diagnoses.
To put this extreme complexity into a daily perspective, researchers from Israel actually observed intensive care units for 24-hour stretches, and what they found is mind-boggling. The average intensive care unit patient requires 178 individual, precise actions every single day just to stay alive. 178. That's from administering drugs to turning the patient in bed to suctioning their lungs. If doctors and nurses make an error in just 1% of those actions, well, that's still almost 2 errors every single day for every single patient.
Section 4, Too much airplane. So what exactly do you do when a job requires more than super specialized expertise can actually handle? Well, we find our totally unexpected answer in a 1935 military flight competition.
Let's rewind to 1935. The U.S. Army was testing out next-generation bombers. Boeing brought in their Model 299, which was this absolute behemoth of a flying fortress. It could fly faster and twice as far as any previous plane. But on October 30th, the plane lifted off, stalled, and crashed in a fiery explosion, tragically killing the pilot. An investigation revealed absolutely no mechanical faults. The crash was officially blamed on, quote-unquote, pilot error. The pilot, who was highly experienced, had simply forgotten to release a single locking mechanism on the flight controls.
A newspaper at the time beautifully captured the root of the problem with this exact quote. They said it was too much airplane for one man to fly. The machine wasn't broken, right? And the pilot certainly wasn't ignorant or unskilled. It was just too incredibly complex for human memory to manage under extreme pressure without missing a single step.
Now, the test pilots could have easily just demanded longer training programs, but instead, they did something wildly different. They created an absurdly simple index card, a checklist. It just had step-by-step checks for takeoff, flight, landing, and taxiing. We're talking dumb stuff like checking if the doors are closed and the controls are unlocked. But with this incredibly simple piece of paper in hand, pilots went on to fly that bomber for 1.8 million miles without a single other accident. The military eventually ordered almost 13,000 of these planes, which became the legendary B-17.
Section 5. The medical checklist. Decades later, a massive question emerged. Could this super simple aviation tool actually translate to the utter chaos of modern healthcare?
Enter Peter Pronovost in 2001. He's a critical care specialist at Johns Hopkins, and he decided to bring this brilliant aviation solution straight into the ICU. He targeted one specific, highly dangerous procedure, putting in a central line, which is basically a catheter placed directly into a major vein. He distilled this insanely complex process down into 5 shockingly mundane steps. 1. Wash your hands. 2. Clean the skin. 3. Put up drapes. 4. Wear a mask and gloves. 5. Put a dressing over the site. I mean, it seems almost too obvious, right? But what Pronovost did next was the real game changer. He empowered the nurses to literally stop the doctors if they skipped even one single step on this checklist.
The results were honestly unbelievable. Within a single year at Johns Hopkins, the 10-day line infection rate plummeted from 11% down to absolutely 0%. 0%. Over the next 15 months, this one little piece of paper prevented 43 infections, saved 8 lives, and saved the hospital $2 million.
But you might be wondering, sure, that works at a prestigious, well-funded hospital like Johns Hopkins, but could it work in the real world? So Pronovost took his checklist to urban, cash-strapped hospitals across the state of Michigan, and the results scaled miraculously. Within just 3 months, line infection rates decreased by 66% statewide. Over 18 months, this incredibly simple piece of paper saved an estimated $175 million and over 1,500 lives across Michigan.
So ultimately, the big takeaway from our explainer today is that checklists aren't just for amateurs. They definitely aren't a sign of weakness or a lack of skill. They are absolutely essential cognitive nets. They defend the most experienced, highly trained professionals in the world against the inevitable, totally human flaws of memory, distraction, and attention. Because in the face of extreme complexity, pure expertise is simply no longer enough to save us. We need a system. As we leave you with that thought, I want you to consider your own daily routines. Conquering extreme complexity doesn't always require more brilliance, more training, or the latest technology. Sometimes it literally just requires a simple, structured approach. So, what complex task in your own life could be completely transformed by a simple checklist?